Terminal illness, it's more than just a diagnosis. It's a slow, merciless countdown that steals hope, joy, and life itself. But nothing cuts deeper than when this cruel fate strikes the most innocent among us, children. Especially those black child stars who once lit up our screens with joy, talent, and promise. They made us laugh. They made us dream. And then, quietly, they were taken. Some in unimaginable pain, robbed of the childhood and fame they worked so hard to achieve. Others, overwhelmed by relentless suffering, found escape in the only way left to them. Today, we honor 19 black child stars whose lives were devastated by terminal illness. Their stories aren't just tragic, they're a heartbreaking reminder of just how fragile life can be, even for the brightest of stars. Thompson Young. From childhood fame to a tragic silence. He was once a beacon of pride in the black community, a rising star whose charm and talent lit up Disney Channel's The Famous Jet Jackson. To millions, Thompson Young was destined for greatness. But behind the bright lights and red carpets, a silent storm was building. On the morning of August 19, 2013, inside a quiet Los Angeles apartment, Lee lay motionless on his bed, staring blankly at the ceiling. The pain had become unbearable, the voices in his mind too cruel to silence. He was numb, no longer angry, no longer afraid. Just done. His phone buzzed with calls from concerned colleagues on the set of Rizzoli and Isles, wondering why he hadn't arrived. But Lee was already slipping away. Hands shaking, he reached for the gun. "Please, just leave me alone," he whispered. A single tear fell. Then, a final shot broke the stillness. And just like that, the world lost a gentle soul it barely understood. Only after his death did the truth surface. Lee had been quietly battling bipolar disorder and deep depression for years. There were signs, withdrawn moments, empty stares on set, emotional distance that spoke volumes. But Hollywood rarely slows down for silent pain. The weight of being a child star, of always having to smile, had chipped away at him for too long. In his honor, Lee's family created the Thompson Young Foundation, a voice for those too afraid to speak, fighting to end the stigma surrounding mental illness. Because sometimes, the brightest lights hide the darkest battles. Gary Coleman, a heart battered but unbroken. In the late 1970s and 80s, Gary Coleman wasn't just a child actor, he was a phenomenon. With his unforgettable charm and razor-sharp wit, he soared to the top, once crowned the greatest child star of all time. But behind that infectious smile was a life marred by pain, betrayal, and relentless health battles. While he made millions laugh on screen, his personal story quietly unraveled off camera. On May 26, 2010, heartbreak struck. Coleman was rushed to Utah Valley Regional Medical Center after a devastating fall at his home in Santaquin. His body was covered in bruises, his brain hemorrhaging, the result of a seizure that occurred after hitting his head on the stairs. Outside his hospital room, loved ones clutched each other in silent desperation, whispering prayers and holding on to hope. But Gary, tired, worn, and already scarred by a lifetime of medical complications, was fading fast. Born with severe kidney disease, he endured over a dozen surgeries before adulthood. A heart operation in 2009 had taken what little strength he had left. And now, doctors fought a losing battle. Coleman briefly opened his eyes one final time, too weak to speak, too tired to fight, before slipping into silence forever. At just 4 feet 8 inches, his body may have been small, but the weight he carried was unimaginable. Fame came too early, the pressure too great. The very industry that made him a star also drained the life from him. In the end, all that remains is the legacy of a boy who gave everything to make others smile, even as his own world collapsed. Gary's ashes were scattered by his life partner, Shannon Price, at the Golden Spike National Historic Site, a quiet tribute to his lifelong love for trains. A final journey for a soul that never truly knew peace in life. Michael B. Jordan, slamming the brakes at the edge of the abyss. From his early breakout in The Wire to becoming a global icon in Creed, Michael B. Jordan has carried the crushing weight of expectation like a badge and a burden. He pushed his body to the edge, trained beyond exhaustion, and ignored every cry for rest. But in 2018, it nearly cost him his life. Behind the red carpets and powerful roles, Jordan was silently battling a storm of severe depression. After one press conference, his assistant had to physically hold him up as he stumbled to the car, too weak to stand on his own. "You need to rest," she pleaded. But Jordan only closed his eyes, leaned his head back, and whispered, "I can't stop now." It all spiraled after Black Panther. The role of Eric Killmonger demanded more than just muscle. It demanded pieces of his soul. He worked through fevers, ignored dizzy spells, and convinced himself that true greatness required suffering. On set, he was a shell, moving like a ghost. At night, he'd lie awake, his heart racing, his mind stuck in loops of pain and self-doubt. Then came the final blow. On September 3, 2020, the world lost Chadwick Boseman. But for Jordan, it felt like losing a brother. At the funeral in South Carolina, he clenched his jaw, swallowing grief whole. "Men don't cry," he told himself. But a friend pulled him aside and whispered a warning that cut deeper than any role. "Take care of yourself, or you'll be next." That moment changed him. Though Black Panther was a triumph, Jordan learned the hard way that no success is worth self-destruction. He emerged from the darkness not just as a star, but as a survivor. And now, he lives with a renewed purpose: to protect the one thing more important than fame, more sacred than legacy, his peace. Nikita Waligua. Our beloved daughter has earned her wings. At just 12 years old, Nikita Pearl Waligua seemed destined for greatness. In 2016, she lit up the screen in Disney's Queen of Katwa, a powerful story about hope rising from the streets of Uganda. Her role touched hearts across the world, but behind her radiant smile, a cruel storm was brewing. One sunny afternoon on set in Kampala, as the crew buzzed with excitement, Nikita suddenly clutched her head. Her small face contorted in pain, a soft cry escaping before she collapsed. Panic spread like wildfire. Lupita Nyong'o rushed to her side, calling out Nikita's name, but the little girl's body convulsed uncontrollably, her fingers twitching, reaching for something invisible. Chaos erupted. The director screamed for help. Moments later, the piercing wail of an ambulance sliced through the air. Nikita's mother burst into the emergency room, eyes swollen with fear, refusing to let go of her baby's fragile hand. Then came the words no parent should ever hear: a brain tumor. Aggressive. Life-threatening. The diagnosis hit like a freight train. Nikita's parents could barely stand. But their daughter, brave, bright, full of life, fought with every ounce of strength she had. The world rallied behind her. Donations poured in to fund treatment in India. Hope flickered. But the disease was merciless. Nikita's legs weakened. Her smile faded. The pain became relentless. Seizures began to take hold. And still she fought. Until that quiet, heartbreaking night in 2020. Her father stood beside her hospital bed, fists clenched, powerless. "Nikita, my baby," he whispered through sobs. Her lips trembled, trying to speak, one final word trapped in her throat. Tears streamed down her cheeks. And then, silence. With one last breath, Nikita slipped away. She left this world far too soon, but her spirit, radiant, unbreakable, will never be forgotten. She was more than a young actress. She was a symbol of courage, light, and grace. A star extinguished, but never lost. Michelle Thomas. A light gone too soon. She was 1 in 10 million, and now, she's gone. Michelle Thomas, the bright star who brought joy and heart to millions through her roles on The Cosby Show and Family Matters, had a smile that could warm any room. But behind that smile was a silent war. In the final months of her life, Michelle battled unimaginable pain. Her once lively body became weak and numb, each day chipping away at the radiance that had made her unforgettable. In December 1998, at Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center in Manhattan, Michelle lay motionless, her spirit dimming within the cold, sterile white walls. The glow she once carried was gone, her skin pale, her frame frail, her breaths shallow and strained. Beside her was Malcolm Jamal Warner, the man who loved her deeply. He held her hand, whispering softly, fighting back tears as he watched the woman he adored slip away. Then the machine stopped. A long, piercing tone echoed through the room, until there was nothing but silence. Malcolm sobbed, pressing her lifeless hand to his lips. Her mother's anguished cries shattered the stillness, collapsing under the weight of grief. Just over a year earlier, in August 1997, Michelle had been diagnosed with a rare and aggressive abdominal cancer, a small round cell tumor. Despite her strength, the disease proved merciless. On December 26, 1998, after her final wishes were honored in a Muslim funeral, Michelle was laid to rest in New Jersey. Though the world lost her far too soon, Michelle Thomas remains eternal in the hearts of those who knew her, watched her, and loved her. Her beauty, courage, and light live on, in the characters she portrayed and the memories she left behind. Tia Mowry, a mother's love that defied the odds. Tia Mowry lit up our screens for decades, radiating joy from her early days on Sister to sharing her real life on Tia and Tamara. To the world, she was the picture of happiness and success. But behind the camera, a silent battle was tearing her apart. It began on a chilly October night in 2008. Tia collapsed onto the cold tile floor of her Los Angeles home, writhing in agony. Waves of stabbing pain gripped her stomach like a vice. She could barely breathe. Her husband, Corey Hardrict, rushed to her side, dropping to his knees in panic. "Tia," he cried, helpless as she gasped for air. Hours in the ER brought no answers, just another dismissive diagnosis: period pain. Painkillers and heating pads were the go-to, but Tia knew deep in her soul, this wasn't normal. Something was terribly wrong. Months later, the truth hit like a thunderclap. Endometriosis. The words felt like a life sentence. Doctors warned that motherhood might never be possible. The couple's dreams of starting a family dimmed under the weight of surgeries, medical setbacks, and emotional exhaustion. But Tia refused to give up. She endured it all: the hospital beds, the scars, the days when hope felt like a distant memory. Even pregnancy didn't bring relief. Every step of the journey was laced with pain, a constant reminder that her body was breaking. Yet she pushed through. And on June 28, 2011, after hours of labor and years of suffering, Tia held her baby boy, Cree, in her arms. Her voice cracked as she whispered through tears, "We did it." Today, Tia Mowry is more than an actress. She's a warrior and a voice for the voiceless, especially for Black women, who often suffer in silence from endometriosis. Her story is a powerful reminder: pain may break the body, but it cannot break the spirit. Tamara Mauy, the illness that nearly killed her, and the sisterly love that saved her. Once America's sweetheart, Tamara Mauy stole hearts as Tamara Campbell on the beloved sitcom Sister. Her bright smile and infectious energy lit up every room. But behind the laughter and camera lights, a terrifying medical crisis nearly cost her everything. It began in late 2018, just a nagging cough, low fevers she brushed off as stress from a packed schedule. But one day, everything changed. In the middle of taping the reel, Tamara collapsed in her dressing room, gasping for air, her body racked with convulsions. Panic erupted. She was rushed to the emergency room, barely conscious. The diagnosis? Severe bronchitis complicated by influenza and pneumonia, a deadly trifecta that threatened to shut down her lungs entirely. Her hospital room became a war zone. Breathing was agony. Her lungs filled with fluid, her chest felt like it was being crushed from the inside. She couldn't sleep, couldn't speak, every word ended in a fit of violent coughing. Fevers spiked so high she drifted into hallucinations, crying out for her loved ones in delirium. And that's when her twin sister, Tia, dropped everything. She raced to Tamara's side as doctors debated placing her on a ventilator. Desperate and driven by love, Tia brought something unexpected: a cup of her own breast milk. Believing in its natural healing properties, she begged her sister to drink it. And then, a miracle. The fever broke. The coughing slowed. Breath came easier. Tamara survived. But recovery wasn't easy. She had to step back from her career, cut filming hours, and endure the whispers of colleagues frustrated by delays. Still, to Tamara, the message was clear: life, family, and love mattered more than any spotlight. And in the darkest moment of her life, it was the unbreakable bond with her sister that brought her back to light. Raven Simone. The silent battle behind the spotlight. She lit up our screens as a child. First on The Cosby Show, then as the unforgettable Raven Baxter in That's So Raven. With her charm, wit, and radiant smile, Raven Simone became America's sweetheart. But behind the laughter and applause, a devastating truth was unfolding. Fame came fast and young. The pressure to always be on, to be perfect, pushed her beyond the edge. In her late teens, she was diagnosed with dissociative disorder, a cruel illness that began erasing her memories. The irony was heartbreaking. Raven could no longer remember the very show that made her a star. Memorizing scripts became a daily war with her mind. Her joy turned into confusion. Her identity, blurry. Still, she fought. In a Raw 2021 interview, she sat with trembling hands and a steady voice. "I lose awareness," she confessed. "The camera turns on and I become who they expect. Then when it turns off, I try to find myself again, if I can." Her words stunned the industry. The world finally saw the price she had paid for our entertainment. But the worst was yet to come. In 2023, Raven's beloved younger brother, Blaze Perman, lost his harrowing 2-year battle with colon cancer. She watched helplessly as his body grew weaker, his breath shallower, until that final, devastating moment. His death shattered her. Panic attacks gripped her. Depression consumed her. Some days she couldn't get out of bed. Friends feared for her life. Yet somehow, Raven endured. Today, she continues to fight back, not just for herself, but for others like her. While she stepped out of the spotlight, she never left the industry. Instead, she found new purpose behind the camera, directing episodes of Raven's Home, Bunked, and Sydney to the max. Her journey, once hidden in silence, now inspires countless others battling mental illness. Raven Simone is no longer just a star. She's a survivor, a warrior, a voice for those still lost in the dark. Kiki Palmer, When the Mirror Becomes the Enemy. Lauren Kiana, Kiki Palmer once lit up the screen as the bright-eyed girl in Akeelah and the Bee, a rising star with a smile that could melt hearts. But behind that smile was a storm brewing, one that no camera could capture. In December 2020, alone in her Los Angeles apartment, Kiki stared into the mirror and barely recognized herself. Her face was ravaged by cystic acne, angry, painful nodules that no cream, no prescription, no diet could tame. She cried in silence, consumed by self-loathing. Dark, coarse hair grew along her jawline and chin, forcing her to shave daily. For a woman constantly under the microscope of fame, it was a silent agony. Doctors brushed her off. "It's just stress," they said. "Change your lifestyle." But Kiki knew better, knew her body was screaming for help. After a year of unanswered questions and relentless persistence, she finally uncovered the truth in late 2021. Polycystic ovary syndrome, POS. There was no cure, only a marathon of treatments. Hormone therapy, insulin regulators, medications that wreaked havoc on her body, triggering weight fluctuations and emotional exhaustion. Then came pregnancy in 2023, which brought its own chaos. Her condition worsened. Hormones surged. Postpartum anxiety crept in like a shadow. But Kiki refused to break. She shared raw, unfiltered images of her bare face online, acne, hair, and all. Instead of judgment, she was met with love. Her vulnerability became a beacon for others struggling in silence. And when her son, Leo, was born, she discovered a deeper strength, one rooted not in perfection, but in survival. In 2025, Kiki Palmer stood tall on stage, clutching the NAACP Image Award for Entertainer of the Year. Tears sparkled in her eyes. That golden statue wasn't just a career milestone, it was a symbol of everything she had overcome. Because no disease, no diagnosis, no mirror could ever dim the radiance of a woman who chose to rise. Jaleel White, a knife to the throat of fame. Jaleel White was just 12 when the world fell in love with him. As the nerdy, lovable Steve Urkel on Family Matters, his high-pitched, nasally voice became a pop culture phenomenon. But behind that iconic sound was a painful secret, one that would haunt him for years. For nearly a decade, Jaleel forced his voice into an unnatural register, pushing his vocal cords beyond their limits just to stay in character. At first, it was just sore throats. But when the show ended in 1998, his world turned upside down. His voice cracked unpredictably, sometimes collapsing into painful, raspy whispers. Then came the diagnosis: permanent vocal damage. His once bright career was now clouded by silence. Speaking became torture. Each word felt like razor blades in his throat. Casting calls dried up. Directors who once praised him now turned him away. Desperate for answers but terrified of surgery, Jaleel spiraled into anxiety and eventually full-blown OCD. His days became filled with obsessive rituals, a way to manage the chaos he couldn't control. And just when things couldn't get worse, life delivered its cruelest blow. In 1998, his close friend and former co-star Michelle Thomas died of stomach cancer at only 30. Jaleel stayed by her side until the end, holding her frail hand as she faded away. At her funeral, he broke down, sobbing openly, a young man crushed by grief, by loss, and by the unbearable weight of what fame had cost him. But Jaleel White didn't quit. He fought his way back with relentless voice therapy, pushing through pain few could imagine. He rebuilt his strength word by word, note by note. Today, projects like Growing Up Urkel prove that while the fame may have scarred him, it never defeated him. His journey is no longer just about a character. It's about survival, redemption, and a voice that refused to be silenced. Zendaya. The choice that nearly cost her everything. From the outside, Zendaya's rise looked like a dream. A gifted girl from Oakland who danced her way into stardom, dazzling audiences by 14 as Rocky Blue on Shake It Up. But behind the glitter of Disney fame and red carpets was a young woman quietly battling her own body, fighting through illness, exhaustion, and the pressure to always perform. Then came 2024. She was on top of the world, promoting Dune, Part 2, her career soaring higher than ever. But the demands of success became relentless. In her obsession to stay sharp, to avoid breaks, she stopped drinking water. It seemed like a minor sacrifice, until it almost killed her. Under the brutal Jordanian sun, while filming, Zendaya's body gave out. Her vision blurred. Her chest tightened. Her legs collapsed beneath her. Crew members rushed in as she drifted in and out of consciousness, her skin scorching with heat, her breath fading. Ice packs, panic, and prayers. It was chaos. Later, in a hospital bed, barely able to speak, she answered her mother's trembling question, "Did you drink any water today?" Her whisper, "No," that one word carried the weight of a near-fatal mistake. Doctors confirmed it. Severe dehydration and heat stroke. Twice she had collapsed on set before, brushing it off. This time, her body refused to keep up. She couldn't walk, couldn't film, could barely move. Then, just as she began to recover, she lost her voice. Entire events were canceled as she battled a raw, burning throat and the heavy toll on her mind. But Zendaya doesn't quit. With therapy, rest, and relentless determination, she clawed her way back. And in 2026, she returned, not just to the spotlight, but as a symbol of strength. Dune, Messiah, Spider-Man 4. Her comeback was nothing short of a rebirth. The pain, the silence, the fear, they didn't break her. They became her proof. Zendaya didn't just survive. She rose, Brandy Norwood, the voice of a generation, crowned young and beloved by millions. From the moment she opened her mouth to sing, it was clear Brandy was born to shine. As a teen, she dominated the airwaves, sold out arenas, and became a pop culture icon. But behind the glitz and gold records was a woman slowly unraveling beneath the weight of perfection. By her 40s, the spotlight that once gave her life had nearly taken it away. The pressure, the expectations, it drained her spirit and ravaged her health. Then came October 11, 2022. Alone in her Los Angeles home, Brandy felt the world spin. Her vision blurred. Her body shook. And then, darkness. When paramedics arrived, they found a star collapsed in silence, battling something deeper than dehydration or malnutrition. She was fighting years of quiet depression, pain no four could heal. In the sterile stillness of a hospital room, her daughter Sarai sat beside her, tears in her eyes and strength in her voice. "You have to fight, Mom," she whispered. And Brandy did. With therapy, time, and a soul-deep determination, she began the climb back. By 2024, she stunned fans with a hauntingly raw performance in the front room. In 2025, she released a powerful memoir, peeling back the layers of her journey with unflinching honesty. Brandy Norwood didn't just survive. She transformed. Her comeback wasn't just a return, it was a rebirth. Proof that even when the lights go out, true stars find a way to rise again. Tyler James Williams. A silent storm beneath the spotlight. From childhood, Tyler James Williams was a household name, the quick-witted kid who brought young Chris Rock to life and made millions laugh. But behind that charming smile was a hidden war that nearly cost him everything. At just 24, desperate to transition into adult roles, Tyler pushed his body past the brink. He pounded protein shakes, lifted until his muscles screamed, and ignored every warning sign. Until December 2017, when it all came crashing down. A sharp, searing pain tore through his gut, leaving him doubled over, unable to eat or even stand. Rushed to NYU Langone, doctors uncovered a horrifying truth. Crohn's disease had been silently ravaging his intestines. His body was a ticking time bomb. Emergency surgery removed 6 inches of his small intestine, but that was only the beginning. Days later, sepsis struck. His organs started to fail. His body went cold. Slipping in and out of consciousness, Tyler clung to a single thought. It can't end like this. I haven't even lived yet. A second surgery saved his life, but the road back was hell. Feeding tubes, sleepless nights, unbearable pain, and a battle to find strength in a body that had once betrayed him. But Tyler didn't quit. He rebuilt himself from the inside out, learning to fuel his body, protect his peace, and chase purpose over pressure. And in 2023, when he stood on stage clutching a Golden Globe for Abbott Elementary, he wasn't just holding a trophy. He was holding proof. Proof that he had faced death and refused to let it write his final chapter. William Thomas Jr. A star that lost its light. Billy Buckwheat Thomas was a star before he even understood what fame was. As a child, his face lit up the screens of our gang, bringing laughter to millions. Decades later, Thomas found solace in a quiet job as a film technician, far from the spotlight. But beneath his strong exterior, his body was fighting a silent war. On the night of October 10, 1980, alone in his Los Angeles apartment, excruciating chest pain gripped him. He staggered, gasping for breath, his heart pounding as if trying to escape his rib cage. He reached for the phone, but the darkness closed in too fast. By the time help arrived, it was too late. A fatal heart attack at 49. The boy who once brought so much joy to the world died in silence, but his legacy is unshakable. Buckwheat remains a symbol of early black representation in Hollywood. His mark on film history permanent even as the industry tried to erase him. Megan Good, a voice for black women's health. From childhood stardom in Eve's Bayou to commanding the screen in Cousin Skeeter, Megan Good grew up under Hollywood's harsh spotlight. But behind the red carpets and flashing cameras was a battle far more terrifying than any role she'd ever played. In 2012, at the peak of her career, a routine doctor's visit turned into a life-altering scare. The doctor's smile faded as he studied her results. Abnormal cells in the uterus. Just 6 words, but they struck like thunder. Cancer? The word echoed in her mind, drowning out everything else. Memories of her grandparents, both lost to the disease, haunted her. Could she be next? The wait for a biopsy result became an emotional prison. Every moment stretched endlessly. Every ache, every flutter in her body sent waves of panic. She cried. She prayed. She begged God for mercy. And then, relief. It wasn't cancer. But the fear had already carved itself deep into her soul. That brush with mortality lit a fire in Megan. She refused to let her pain be in vain. Instead, she transformed it into purpose, becoming a passionate advocate for Black women's health. Through her campaign, The Spot, she's raised awareness, shattered stigmas, and urged women to take control of their bodies, their checkups, their futures. Now at 41, Megan Good isn't just an actress. She's a warrior, using her voice, her story, and her spotlight to save lives. Todd Bridges, a child star on the edge of oblivion. Once adored as Willis Jackson on Different Strokes, Todd Bridges lived a nightmare far from the cameras. Behind the smile was a man haunted by trauma, spiraling into the grip of crack and meth. By 1992, he was barely recognizable, thin, broken, and drowning in addiction. On a cold December night in Burbank, it all came to a head. Sitting in his Mercedes, a loaded gun rested on his lap. He reached for it. Sirens wailed. Officers shouted. In that frozen moment, Todd was ready to die. Suicide by cop. But then, he stopped. He chose to live. Rehab wasn't redemption, it was torture. He shook, vomited, cried, crawled through the flames of withdrawal. His mother never left his side, watching her son fight for every breath. Slowly, painfully, Todd pulled himself from the brink. Today, he bears the scars of his battle but wears them with pride. He mentors others now, living proof that even in life's darkest moments, there's still a way back. His story isn't just about survival, it's about the strength to face the demons that almost won. Chadwick Boseman, the final bow of a true king. Chadwick's journey felt like destiny written in bold. From a boy with big dreams to embodying legends like Jackie Robinson and finally becoming the iconic T'Challa, the Black Panther, his rise was nothing short of extraordinary. But while the world watched him shine, a silent battle was tearing through him. Diagnosed with stage 3 colon cancer in 2016, Chadwick chose silence over sympathy. He endured brutal surgeries and relentless chemotherapy, all while filming Black Panther, Da 5 Bloods, and Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. On set, he carried himself like a warrior, hiding pain so severe it nearly dropped him between scenes. His body weakened, but his will never wavered. Only a tight circle knew, his wife's quiet sobs, his friends' whispered prayers. On August 28, 2020, in the embrace of loved ones at his Los Angeles home, Chadwick took his final breath. The world was stunned. Grief swept across continents. But even in death, his light didn't dim, it blazed. His final performances, carved from suffering, stand as monuments to resilience. Chadwick didn't just act, he inspired, and in doing so, he became immortal. Yara Shahidi, I will always be by your side, Mom. Yara's childhood was a whirlwind of fame, lights, cameras, applause. From Imagine That to Blackish, she was a star before fully grasping the weight of it all. But no amount of success could have prepared her for the stark, sterile chill of a hospital room. Her mother, once a pillar of strength, lay frail in the bed, tubes running from her arms, her voice barely a whisper. Yara gripped her hand, her heart racing with fear. Every chemo session drained her mother further, her skin pale, her body trembling. Though terrified, Yara forced a smile, offering reassurances she barely believed. Then, the doctor's words. Yara had a high risk of developing breast cancer. The walls closed in. Nights became endless cycles of silent tears and desperate prayers. When her mother finally recovered, Yara made a vow, never let fear steal her voice again. Now, she fights relentlessly for awareness. Haunted but unbroken, she stands strong. The Hollywood spotlight might hide their pain, but the stories of these Black child stars, stories of devastating diagnoses, battles, and losses, are impossible to ignore. Some fought until their last breath, while others continue to hold on with every ounce of strength. Their tragedies remind us all to never take our health for granted. Which story shocked you the most? Share your thoughts in the comments below.